I froze right there behind the fence when I heard my own sister say, "I hope she got into an accident." For a second, I thought maybe I heard her wrong. But then I heard my mom laugh, and my dad's voice join in. The laughter that followed felt like knives cutting through me. I stood still, afraid to move, afraid they would see me. My heart started racing, and my hands began to shake. These were the people I loved the most, the ones I trusted more than anyone. Hearing them talk about me like that made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family anymore. I had come home that evening thinking it would be a warm reunion. I had been away for months, working hard and saving up to surprise them with gifts. I thought they missed me. I thought they loved me. But in that moment, I realized I had been living in a lie. Every laugh, every hug, every "I love you" they said before I left suddenly felt fake. I could feel tears building up, but I didn't want to cry. Not there. Not where they could hear me. I stepped back slowly, trying not to make any noise. My legs felt weak, but I managed to get back to my car parked outside. When I got in, I just sat there in silence. The sound of their laughter still echoed in my ears. It wasn't just my sister's words that hurt, it was that my parents joined her. The people who were supposed to protect me, love me, and stand by me were laughing at my pain. I had done everything to make them proud, but it never seemed enough. I didn't drive away right away. I just sat there, watching the lights from the backyard, wondering what I had done wrong to deserve this. My sister, Sarah, had always been jealous of me, but I never thought it ran this deep. She had a good life, a husband, kids, a nice home. I had always supported her, celebrated her wins, and helped her when she needed it. And yet, here she was, wishing something horrible had happened to me. After a while, I finally started the car. My hands were still trembling, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I drove off without looking back. The road ahead was dark, but at least it was mine. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere felt better than being near people who wanted to see me hurt. As I drove, I tried to tell myself I didn't care, that I was done with them. But deep down, I knew something inside me had broken for good. That night, something in me changed. The girl who always tried to please everyone was gone. What replaced her was someone quiet, calm, and stronger. I didn't know it yet, but that. Growing up, Emma always believed her family was special. Her parents, Mark and Linda, often told her and her sister that family came before everything. They said no matter what happened in life, they would always stand together. Emma believed them. She thought her family was different from others, strong, loving, and unbreakable. Every Sunday, they had dinner together, laughed over stories, and prayed before bed. It looked perfect from the outside, and for a long time, Emma thought it truly was. Her sister, Sarah, was her best friend. They shared clothes, secrets, and dreams. Sarah was older by 3 years, and Emma looked up to her. Whenever Sarah got in trouble, Emma was the first to defend her. Whenever Emma achieved something, she ran to Sarah first to share the news. Their bond seemed genuine, and Emma never doubted her sister's love. What she didn't know was that jealousy had quietly been growing between them for years, hidden behind smiles and soft words. Their parents treated Sarah and Emma differently. Sarah was praised for everything, even the smallest effort. Emma, on the other hand, had to work harder to be noticed. When she got straight A's, her mother would say, "That's what's expected from you." But when Sarah passed a class, they would throw a small celebration. Emma noticed it, but never questioned it. She thought that maybe that's just how love worked in her family. As they grew older, the gap between the sisters widened. Sarah would make jokes that sounded harmless but carried a sharp edge. She would say things like, "Not everyone gets lucky like you, Emma," or "You always make it about yourself." Emma laughed it off, thinking it was normal sister teasing. But over time, the jokes became heavier, and Emma started feeling like she had to shrink herself just to keep peace in the house. When Emma got her first job after college, she thought her parents and sister would be proud. Instead, Sarah complained that Emma was trying to act better than everyone. Her parents didn't defend Emma, they just stayed silent. It was then Emma started noticing how Sarah would roll her eyes whenever Emma spoke, or how her mother's tone changed when she mentioned her achievement. Still, Emma pushed the thoughts away. She told herself families had rough patches. Mark and Linda kept pretending everything was fine. They loved to show people how perfect their family was. At parties, they smiled, hugged, and bragged about their daughters. But behind closed doors, there was distance, cold silence, and hidden bitterness. Emma felt it, but didn't understand why. She thought if she just kept being kind and helpful, things would get better. She had no idea that beneath the picture-perfect image, her family was held together by comparison and quiet resentment. She never realized how much envy had poisoned their love until the night she stood behind that fence. That night didn't come out of nowhere. It was years in the making. She just hadn't seen it before. Moment behind the fence was the start of my freedom. After being away for 3 years, Emma finally decided to return to her hometown in Ohio. Her father's birthday was coming up, and she thought it would be the right time to see everyone. The past year had been hard for her. She had been in a serious car accident that almost took her life. The recovery was long and painful, both physically and emotionally. There were days she couldn't even walk or feed herself, but she fought through it alone. She didn't hear much from her family during that time, just a few short messages that felt more like obligation than care. Still, she convinced herself that maybe they were just busy or didn't know how to handle her situation. Now that she was healed, she wanted to start fresh. She hoped this visit would bring her family closer again. She pictured her dad's warm hug, her mom's teary eyes, and Sarah smiling proudly at how strong she had been. Emma even bought gifts for everyone, small things that showed she still thought of them. She wanted to surprise her dad with a framed photo of them fishing when she was little. That memory had always been special to her. When she arrived, the air felt colder than she expected. She knocked on the door, and Sarah opened it with a forced smile. "Oh, you made it," she said flatly. Her voice didn't sound happy or surprised, just polite. Emma stepped inside, expecting to hear her dad's cheerful tone or her mom calling her name. Instead, the house was quiet except for the sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen. Her mom came out, wiped her hands, and gave her a short hug that ended too soon. Her dad gave her a nod but didn't say much. Emma tried to lighten the mood. She asked about the kids, the house, work, anything to start a normal conversation. But every answer she got was short, cold, and distant. Sarah kept checking her phone. Her mom looked tired and distracted. Her dad just sat there, sipping his drink. The warmth she hoped for wasn't there. It felt like she had walked into a stranger's house. At dinner, no one asked her about her recovery or how she managed to get back on her feet. Instead, they talked about small things: Sarah's new car, the weather, her mom's garden. Emma smiled and listened, even though she felt invisible. She tried not to let it bother her, telling herself maybe they were just having an off day. After dinner, she offered to help clean up, but Sarah said, "It's fine, you've done enough," with a tone that made Emma feel unwelcome. She went to the backyard alone for some air, thinking maybe she was just imagining. The night was quiet, and she could hear faint laughter coming from inside. For a moment, she thought about leaving early. She didn't know it yet, but she was only moments away from hearing something. The night was quiet, and the house felt heavy with tension Emma couldn't explain. After dinner, she went to her car to get the small box she had brought with her. Inside was a handmade scrapbook for her dad's birthday, filled with old photos, letters, and little memories from their past. She had spent weeks making it, hoping it would remind them all of how close they once were. As she walked back toward the house, she noticed the lights were still on in the backyard. She heard faint voices and soft laughter coming from the patio. She smiled a little, thinking maybe they were sharing funny stories about the night. She walked closer, holding the box tightly in her hands, but then she heard her name. Her steps slowed. Sarah's voice came through the air, sharp and bitter. "Honestly, I wish Emma had stayed gone. Maybe that accident should have finished her." The words hit Emma like a slap. For a second, she thought she was dreaming. She stood still, her breath caught in her throat, waiting for someone, anyone, to speak up, to tell Sarah that was a terrible thing to say. But instead, she heard her mother laugh. Then her father chuckled, and her aunt added, "She always loved playing the victim anyway." Emma's knees felt weak. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. These were the people she had come to surprise, the people she had missed every single day while she was recovering. She had imagined them crying for her when she was in the hospital, praying she would survive. Now, hearing them laugh about her pain made her chest tighten until she could hardly breathe. She took a small step back, her hand gripping the gift box tighter. The sound of their laughter echoed louder in her ears. Every word that followed felt like another crack in her heart. Sarah continued, "She acts so perfect, like she's better than everyone. Maybe now she'll stop showing off." Her mother's voice joined in, saying softly, "Emma always thought she was special." Her father laughed again, the same man she once thought would protect her from everything. Emma turned around quietly, careful not to make any sound. The box in her hands trembled. She looked down at it and felt something inside her break. The gift that once meant love now felt meaningless. She walked back to her car slowly, each step heavier than the last. When she got inside, she placed the box on the seat next to her and just sat there in silence. The laughter from the backyard carried through the night air. She could still hear it faintly as she started the engine. It was the same sound she had grown up hearing at family dinners, the sound that once made her feel safe. But now it felt cruel and hollow. She realized then that the people she loved most had never really loved her the same way. As she drove away, she didn't cry. She just whispered to herself, "Now I know," would change everything she believed about her family forever. Emma stood still, hidden behind the bushes, her heart beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. The voices from the patio grew softer, but the damage was already done. Every word they said kept replaying in her head like a broken record. Her sister's voice, her mother's laugh, her father's quiet agreement. They all blended together into something that didn't sound like family anymore. Her hands felt cold, and her throat tightened as if something was stuck inside. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. It was like her body forgot how to move or feel. For a long moment, she just stood there in silence. Her mind was blank, but her chest felt heavy, like someone had placed a rock inside it. The night breeze touched her face, but it didn't calm her. Nothing could. She couldn't understand how everything could change in a single moment. These were the people she had loved more than anyone. She had almost died thinking about coming back to them. During her recovery, she imagined their hugs, their worried faces, their comfort. But what she heard tonight showed her a truth she never wanted to face. They didn't care. Emma slowly turned away before anyone could notice her. She walked back toward her car quietly, her steps soft on the grass. The sound of laughter still floated behind her, mixed with bits of conversation she couldn't bear to listen to anymore. She opened the car door and sat inside, staring blankly ahead. Her body felt numb. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink for a while. It was like her emotions had been shut off completely. She looked at the box she had made for her father, sitting on the passenger seat. The bow on top was still perfectly tied, and she could see her handwriting on the card. For a second, she thought about taking it back inside. But then she remembered her sister's words. Maybe that accident should have finished her, and she couldn't bring herself to move. She placed her hand over the box gently, like saying goodbye to the last piece of love she had for them. The street was quiet when she started the car. The headlights lit up the empty road ahead, but she didn't drive right away. She just sat there, staring into the darkness. Her mind was full, but her heart felt empty. There were no tears, no anger, just a deep silence that settled inside her like cold water. As she finally began to drive, her reflection in the window looked different. The warmth in her eyes was gone, replaced by something quiet and distant. That night, Emma didn't just leave her family's house. She left behind the part of herself that believed love could fix everything. The laughter that once felt like home was now the sound that reminded her how alone she truly was. Emma didn't go back inside. She didn't want to see their faces or hear another word from them. She drove straight past her old street and kept going until the neighborhood lights disappeared in the distance. The silence in the car was heavy, but she preferred it that way. After a while, she saw a small roadside motel with a flickering neon sign that said vacancy. She pulled in, parked, and sat there for a few minutes, staring at the dim lights glowing from the windows. She checked in quietly. The man at the counter didn't ask questions. He just handed her the key and wished her a good night. The room was small and plain. The wallpaper was fading, and the air smelled like dust and old. She didn't care. She just needed a place where no one knew her, where she could breathe without pretending. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall for a long time. Her mind kept pulling her backward, forcing her to see every memory that now felt wrong. She thought about the birthdays they celebrated together, the family photos where everyone smiled, and the nights she stayed up helping her sister with her problem. Every "I love you" they said now sounded fake. Every moment of warmth she once held close felt like part of a performance she didn't realize she was part of. The truth hurt, but it was clear now. The family she loved had never truly loved her back the same way. At one point, she opened her bag and pulled out her father's gift, the scrapbook she made with so much care. She ran her fingers over the cover, tracing the photo on top. She thought about leaving it on his porch earlier that night, but now she was glad she didn't. It didn't belong to them anymore. It belonged to the girl who still believed in love and family, the girl she had been just hours ago. The tears she had been holding back finally started to fall, one after another. She didn't sob. She just let them roll quietly down her cheeks. She sat there in silence, letting all the pain that had been building up finally leave her body. When the tears stopped, she wiped her face and looked around the small room. It wasn't home, but it was peaceful. And for the first time, peace was enough. She took a deep breath and made herself a promise. She wouldn't waste another minute trying to earn love from people who didn't value it. She wouldn't live her life proving them wrong or chasing their approval. Instead, she would rebuild herself, slowly, quietly, and with strength they would never understand. She didn't know where life would take her next, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going back. That night, in that lonely motel room, Emma finally chose herself. The next morning, Emma woke up to the weak light coming through the thin motel curtain. Her eyes were swollen, and her head felt heavy, but something inside her had changed. The pain was still there, but it wasn't controlling her anymore. She got up, washed her face, and looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time, she didn't see a broken person. She saw someone who survived. That day marked the start of a new chapter. She didn't go back to her family's house or call them. Instead, she packed her things and drove toward Chicago, a place she had always dreamed about living in but never had the courage to go. She didn't have a solid plan, just a few savings, her degree, and a quiet determination to start fresh. The drive was long, but each mile felt lighter, as if she was leaving behind a part of the pain with every turn of the wheel. When she reached the city, she rented a small apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. She started taking freelance design jobs, working long hours and sometimes barely sleeping, but she didn't mind. Her work became her escape. With each project, she poured in her emotions, everything she couldn't say, everything she had felt. Slowly, her clients started to notice her talent. One job turned into 3, and soon, she had more work than she could handle alone. That's when the idea came. She wanted to start her own design firm. It wasn't easy. There were nights she doubted herself, wondering if she could really do it without any support. But then she remembered that she had already survived the hardest thing, being betrayed by the people she loved most. Compared to that, starting over didn't seem so impossible. She pushed forward day after day, never giving up. Within 2 years, her small dream turned into a real company. She rented an office space, hired a few designers, and began working with bigger clients. Her business grew, and so did her confidence. She finally felt free from needing approval, free from guilt, free from the past. Along the way, Emma met people who became like family. Friends who checked on her when she was tired, who celebrated her wins, and who stood by her without expecting anything in return. They reminded her that love could be gentle and real. Through them, she found the warmth she had been missing for so long. One evening, as she sat by her apartment window looking out at the city lights, she realized she didn't hate her family anymore. The anger had faded. She didn't want revenge or apologies. She had found something far better: peace. True peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop chasing people who never cared and start building a life that feels right for you. For the first time in years, Emma smiled, not because. It was a calm afternoon in Chicago when Emma's phone started to ring. The number on the screen made her pause. It was her mother. For a moment, she thought about ignoring it, just like she had done so many times before, but something made her answer. Her mother's voice on the other end was soft, almost shaky. "Emma," she said, "it's been a while. We need to talk." Emma stayed quiet, waiting for her to continue. Her mother hesitated before speaking again. "It's your sister. Sarah's having a hard time. The family business isn't doing well. We're falling behind on payments, and your father's health isn't great either." She paused, then added, "We were hoping you could come home and talk things through. Maybe you could help us figure something out." For a few seconds, Emma didn't say anything. She sat there, holding the phone to her ear, trying to process the words. The same people who had once wished her gone were now reaching out for help. A small, bitter laugh escaped her lips before she could stop it. "You want me to come home?" she asked quietly. Her mother sounded relieved, thinking Emma was considering it. "Yes, sweetheart. We just need you for a little while. You've always been so capable. Your sister could really use your advice." Emma looked around her office. On her wall hung photos of her team, her friends, her new family. They had stood by her when she had nothing. Now she had everything she once dreamed of. Her company was thriving, her life was peaceful, and she had built it all without a single ounce of help from the people now asking. She took a slow breath and asked, "Does Sarah know you're calling me?" There was a short silence on the other end. "Yes," her mother finally said. "She knows we need your help. She's not proud of it, but she agreed." Emma could almost hear the discomfort in her voice. It was strange hearing them so desperate. These were the same people who laughed when they thought she was broken, the ones who had turned their backs on her when she needed them most. Now, they were the ones struggling while she was standing tall. Emma didn't feel angry. She didn't even feel satisfaction. She just felt calm. Life had a way of coming full circle. Without saying yes or no, she told her mother she'd think about it and hung up the phone. She sat back in her chair, letting the moment sink in. For a long time, she had imagined what it would feel like to see them fall, to have the power they once took from her. But now that it had happened, she realized she didn't need revenge. She didn't need to prove anything. The peace she had built spoke louder than any words ever could. Emma smiled faintly to herself. The world had turned, just like it always does. And this time, she was on the side that finally felt right. Of anyone else, but because she was proud of herself. A week after the phone call, Emma decided to go back. Not because she wanted to help, but because she needed closure. She drove into her old neighborhood on a bright afternoon. The same streets that once felt heavy with memories now looked smaller and unfamiliar. She parked her car in front of her parents' house and sat for a moment, breathing deeply. She wasn't nervous. The pain that used to control her was gone. All that was left was calmness. When she stepped out, the air smelled like fresh grass. She was dressed in a neat beige suit, her hair tied back, her posture straight. She walked to the door with quiet confidence. Her mother opened it, her face full of surprise. "Emma," she said softly, almost unsure how to react. Emma smiled politely and said, "Hi, Mom." For a few seconds, they just stared at each other before her mother stepped aside to let her in. The house looked the same furniture, same pictures on the walls, but it didn't feel like home anymore. The warmth she used to feel here had vanished long. Her father was sitting in the living room, looking tired and older than she remembered. Sarah was there too, her eyes downcast, her expression uneasy. The silence in the room was thick. Emma greeted them all calmly, without showing a hint of anger or sadness. They gathered in the backyard, the same place where her world had once fallen apart. The memory of that night flashed in her mind for a moment, but it didn't hurt anymore. It only reminded her of how far she had come. Her father spoke first, explaining how the business was struggling, how debts had piled up, and how they were out of options. He said they needed advice, maybe even some financial support. Her mother kept glancing at her, trying to read her reaction. Sarah didn't say much, but Emma could see the embarrassment in her face. When her father finished, everyone looked at her, waiting for her to respond. Emma stayed quiet for a few seconds. She looked around the backyard, the same patio, the same chairs, the same people. But this time, she wasn't the broken one. She was the strong one. Finally, she smiled faintly and said, "I wish I could help, but some things should stay gone. Just like I did." The words hung in the air. No one spoke. Her mother's face fell, her father looked down, and Sarah's eyes filled with guilt. Emma didn't add anything else. She stood up, straightened her jacket, and walked back toward her car. The sound of her heels on the pavement was the only thing breaking the silence. As she opened the car door, she glanced back one last time. The people who once made her feel small were now the ones lost for words. She didn't feel joy or anger, just peace. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about finally letting go. Her calmness was her. When Emma returned to Chicago, the city felt different. The noise, the traffic, the rush of people, it all used to overwhelm her. But now it felt like home. Her apartment was quiet and bright, filled with small reminders of the life she had built on her own. She placed her bag down, took off her shoes, and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The view of the city lights stretched out before her, calm and endless. For the first time in a long time, she felt completely at peace. She thought about what had just happened, the visit, the backyard, the faces that once meant everything to her. There was no sadness left, no anger either. What used to hurt her now only felt distant, like something that belonged to another life. She had faced them, stood tall, and walked away with her head held high. She didn't need to shout, argue, or prove anything. Her silence had spoken louder than any revenge ever could. The days that followed were quiet but peaceful. Emma went back to her work, meeting clients, managing her team, and creating designs that reflected the strength she had gained. Her friends noticed she seemed lighter, as if a shadow had lifted from her. When they asked if something had happened, she just smiled and said, "I finally closed a chapter." She didn't explain further, and she didn't need to. At night, when she lay in bed, her mind no longer replayed painful memories. The laughter that once haunted her had lost its power. It had once broken her heart, but now it was nothing more than a faint sound she could barely remember. The silence she carried inside wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. She realized that she didn't need revenge or apologies. What she needed was freedom from the pain, and she had finally found it. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Emma stood by the window again, watching the golden light fade into the skyline. She whispered softly to herself, "Sometimes, walking away is louder than revenge." The words came naturally, as if they had been waiting inside her all along. She smiled, feeling the truth of them settle in her chest. Her life had come full circle. The family that once laughed at her pain was now facing their own silence, while she had built something beautiful out of her own. The peace she carried was her answer to everything they had done. She didn't need to prove her worth. They had already seen it, even if they would never admit it. As night fell, Emma turned off the lights and sat quietly for a moment. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who cried in her car, who questioned her value, who begged for love from the wrong people. That girl had grown into someone strong, calm, and sure of herself. Her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about healing, about finding strength and peace. And in that peace, Emma finally found her freedom. And her silence said everything they needed to hear.